Hello, everyone. Tiffany Capello from Transform Life. Today, we're going to talk about 3 thinking patterns that create a ton of stress in your life and what to do about them. But before I do that, I just want to apologize because I realized after I recorded a couple of last videos that it was really difficult to hear me. So from now on, you'll see this silly microphone right here because when I try to put it out of sight, it just doesn't turn out well. And half the time the video sound isn't great. So here we are. And you'll have to, and me and you both will have to look at this annoying microphone. So let's jump right into today's topic. But before I do, I just want to tell you that these 3 thinking patterns that I'm going to talk about all lead to overthinking. It's when we're just plagued with worry. And that worry falls into 3 categories, and you may or may not be struggling with all of them. It's worry over the past, fretting over the stress in your day to day life now, and worrying and obsessing over what might happen in the future. Okay. And so we talked in a previous video about how to deal with future fears, but hopefully you could hear the video. But we're going to deal with that a little bit again because I want to talk about what do you do about that. It's good to see how your worries fall into these 3 categories because a lot of times when we struggle with anxiety, you're going to therapy, you're reading books, you've tried so much, it's not working, you're led to believe, oh, this is so complex. Am I ever going to get better? And it's because we love to make everything difficult and complex in this world. You know, there's a product for everything. Instead of just eating blueberries, take the blueberry tablet. Instead of taking turmeric and adding it to your food or coffee, you're going to take $100 a month curcumin supplement. We just love to make a product out of everything. We love to make everything complex. We love to make everything expensive because somehow it's a cultural belief that the more complex it is, the better it is, and that solutions need to be complex. And recovering from anxiety just isn't that complex. It's actually quite simple. And there's a lot of very basic and simple principles that help you to recover. Trust me, I was an expert at overthinking and anxiety. As I've mentioned in previous videos, I was completely debilitated, agoraphobic, panic attacks on a daily basis, reading books, trying all sorts of elaborate schemes to recover, going to therapy. Nothing was working. Okay. So I want to break it down in my videos and just really help you to realize how simple it is. So they're not going to be high tech, no flashy pictures, but my heart is that you can find help because one day of struggle is too many days. You really can live at peace. I don't care how much trauma you've had. I don't care what a bad life that you've had. I have had terrible trauma, terrible tragedies, and a lot of suffering. You can still find peace. And so I want to encourage you with that. If you're here thinking, oh, that's you, Tiffany, you probably had an easy life. No, I didn't. So let's talk about each of these categories because you may or may not struggle, but hear me out because if you're not dealing with one now, you might be later. Something might creep up in your mind. But I really want you to think about categorizing your anxiety into these 3 categories: past, present, and future, because each of them have a different root. Because remember, our anxiety always has root beliefs behind it. Your brain is sending the anxiety because it believes you're not safe. It's basing that determination on stuff you believe in your subconscious and also stuff that's happened in the past to you. And so let's talk first about the past. So, what creates misery and stress in our life when it comes to our past is a lot of guilt and shame, first of all. Remember, there's a difference between guilt and shame. Guilt says, what I did was wrong. Who hasn't done something wrong? Okay, we all have. I have things that I'm literally just so embarrassed that I ever did. Okay, I think back and I kind of cringe. They were legitimately wrong things I said or did, people I genuinely hurt. If you have never hurt anyone, you're probably not very self aware. Okay, we've all done it. No matter how much we try to live good and be really kind people, we just do it. Now, shame says, I am a bad person. Shame is when you stamp an identity on your head. What happens when you stamp an identity on your head? You believe this is the way I am. And then that restrictive identity is how you're going to live going forward. Okay, this is why shame is so very dangerous, needs to be worked through, because you don't have a set identity. You are never stuck being someone you don't want to be. Okay, you can always create change. When you change your beliefs, you change your reality, you change your expression, you change your mindset, your thinking, everything. Everything responds to that, okay? Doesn't mean we can literally create a Maserati with our beliefs or anything. If you believe that, that's fine. My mind doesn't go there. That's okay. All right. But I'm just saying that your peace of mind is created by how you believe, what you believe about yourself, about life, and about the world around you. And so when you think about the past, there needs to be certain beliefs that will set you free and how you view that. You can be set free of guilt and shame, but guilt and shame is not the only thing that happens in our subconscious mind that leads to misery when it comes to us rehearsing the past. Also, there's anger. Okay. I know each one of you has had someone do something to you that you just think about and your blood boils. Like, how could that person do that? And it just really upsets you even 10 years later, 15 years later. You may be replaying that same story, that betrayal, that cruel abuse in your mind, and you're still angry about it. Now, first of all, I want to say to you that none of these emotions are bad, okay? For some reason, anger has a bad rap. People believe if I'm a good person, I should be angry. If I'm a good person, I should forgive. Now, is forgiveness good? It's good, okay? But I will tell you this, forgiveness is never something you can force. Okay, forgiveness is something that comes with time. And so trying to force yourself to forgive is never going to work. Okay, so you might as well give up. Forgiveness comes with time as you begin to shift the way you think. Okay, one of the best ways to move past that is to change the way you think about the past. Okay, so how do we overcome that guilt and shame of the past, first of all? So, you did what you did in the past because of what you believed at the time, the knowledge you had at the time. Okay, you did the best you could with the knowledge you have, even if you look back on it and think, oh my God. Okay, but here's the thing, okay? If you had known better, if you had known what you know now, you wouldn't have done that. Am I right? If you think about what you did in the past, if you had an opportunity to redo it right now, you would. That shows that you think differently. Okay. So we need to have a different approach when we think about the past, and remember that you are judging the past from the standard of what you know now, and your life is a journey. Imagine you have a 6-year-old child and you hire a tutor for that child, and they sit down with the child, and you come into the kitchen where the tutor's helping the child, and you find the tutor screaming and demeaning and calling your child names and saying, you're stupid, why did you do that, you're worthless. Some of the things we say to ourselves, right? And you hear all this and you think, what the heck? And then you ask that tutor, why are you treating my kid this way? And the tutor says, well, because he can't do his calculus. I think my child is 6. Now, you recognize that it would be wrong to judge that child because they can't do calculus. Because, of course, he's not going to know how to do calculus because he lacks the prerequisite knowledge at 6 years old to be able to do the calculus. Well, if you are really honest and you look back, you'll see that a lot of the mistakes you made, a lot of the people you hurt, you lack the prerequisite knowledge, the understanding of maybe relationships, conflict resolution, how to handle yourself. Maybe you believed something about yourself that caused you to behave in that way. Okay. And so if you knew now what you knew then, you would have done differently. So understanding that you're always going to look back on the past from a standpoint of greater wisdom. 5 years from now, you're going to look back on now and go, oh, I wish I would have done that different. Okay, that's just normal. Okay, so having that understanding, and I call that the difference between having a standard mentality and a journey mentality. Life is not about some standard up here that you have to reach to be a good person. Life is a journey. Okay, if you think about a child, they're learning and growing. Your child isn't born into this world And at 6, they know how to resolve conflict and communicate in a loving way. They don't know these things. And this is what frustrates me about a lot of parents. I've done it myself. They look at kids and they expect that child to be a little adult. They scream, they yell, they punish, they shame because that child is acting like a child. Okay. And if you've had a parent that shamed you for just being a child, that's how we end up developing a lot of that guilt and shame ourselves. So throw off that mentality and think about your life as this journey, okay? A journey of you growing in knowledge and wisdom and skills and strength, okay? And you're going to continue that journey. You are still going to make a lot of mistakes, and you're going to look back and notice them, okay? So adopting that journey mentality. Now, what do we do about the other aspect of the past, that anger, that lack of forgiveness that we have towards other people? Okay. Um, Now, I don't believe it's always wrong to be angry. I don't think it's ever wrong to be angry. Okay. What you need to do when you think about what other people have done is to ask yourself, when have I ever done something similar? Okay. And if you can think of something, it helps you, if you've been able to forgive yourself, to be able to forgive them. But some things are just unforgivable. I know some of you have been terribly abused. You didn't deserve it. And what that person did was horrible. Let me tell you, I'm going to say something that very few people say. You're not under any obligation to forgive that person. Okay. And now it doesn't hurt them if you don't forgive them. Okay. So it's not like you're paying them back. And people say, well, if you don't forgive, it hurts you. Okay. I'm not buying that. Okay. I think we need to let it go, but we don't ever have to give that person a pass for what they have done. Okay. But it's hard to let go if you believe you have to forgive, because what you're doing is mustering up these memories all the time and then going, I need to forgive. I'm a bad person because I didn't forgive. And you're actually reinforcing the misery from the past. Just let it go. That person did a terrible thing to you. You have a right to be angry. I encourage you to express that anger. That's why I'm such an advocate of what I call journaling to freedom, because when you repress all of that anger, it can actually lead to chronic pain, illness, anxiety, depression. It's okay to feel it. It's okay to express it. It's not always appropriate for you to express it to the person. Maybe the person has passed. Maybe you'll make them cry and you don't want to do that. But you can express that on paper. You can throw it away, but please don't keep it inside. Get it out and be okay with how you feel. You're not a bad person if you're angry. The second area is the present. We get so overwhelmed by what's going on in our present day to day life, okay? And that overwhelm is often generated by something I talk about a lot, the 3 things we tell ourselves, okay? You'll notice I repeat myself. Here's why: because it's really simple. It's not easy all the time, but it's simple. But you tell yourself these 3 things that I'm going to just keep reiterating. You look at your life, you see the stresses, you see the strains, you see the challenges, and you say, I can't do this. I can't stand it. I can't handle this. I'm just going to die if things don't work out. I don't know what to do. It's all this self doubt. And when you say these things, your subconscious mind is going to go, oh, Tiffany can't handle it. She can't stand. I got to make sure this stuff never happens. And it's going to continually to send these fearful thoughts. It's going to keep you up at night trying to figure out how to solve these problems. Okay. So what kind of mindset is going to help you get past that? Because it's not about us just identifying the root cause of what's causing you to be so stressed out in the present moment, but also what needs to shift in your thinking for you to find peace of mind. It's not about you rearranging all of the external events in your life perfectly so you could have peace. This is what most people do. They spend their life trying to rearrange everything in their life to be just the way they want it so they could have peace. And guess what? You're never going to have peace. Everything in my life isn't the way I want it. And I've been working 55 years to get it that way. And I finally realized it's just not going to be the way I want it. I have to accept the way it is. Now, what happens when we want something so bad to change and it can't change because it's outside our control? Maybe you have a chronically ill child. Maybe your partner has left you. Maybe you've lost your job. You can't change it. You can't go back. It's outside of your control. That's when we have to shift internally. Okay. So we can have that sense of agency, because when we can't shift externally, we can shift internally. And one of the most important things for you to do is to adopt some beliefs about yourself. First of all, you can do this. Okay. And here's a belief that I cling to and that brings me so much hope. And that is that every problem has a solution. Okay. Every problem has a solution. Now, once again, it's not always something external that you can change. My son has osteogenesis imperfecta. It's a genetic condition. He breaks bones easily. I could want that to go away, but it's not going to go away. It's not going to go away for him or me. Okay. We can't shift that externally, but we can shift internally. We can adapt and grow, emotionally, spiritually. If he lifts weights, actually that does build some bone density, but he still has OI. Okay, but so we can do these things to create change, but the problem itself is never going to go away. So we have to adapt to the problem. Okay. So, but when I say there's a solution to every problem, it's not always going to change the external, but we can change ourselves. We can build our strength and resilience and our internal toughness to handle the situation. And you see what I said? To handle the situation. So instead of saying, I can't handle this, I can't take this, I can't stand it, we're saying, all right, I'm tough. I got this, I can handle it. Now, and sometimes that's hard to do because circumstances are so overwhelming and we don't know what to do. And that's okay, because you have to believe in yourself that you are smart enough to find solutions, whether they're internal or external. I don't know the solution now, but I know there is a solution. There's a way to peace, and I'm smart enough to find it. And you have never lived in a better time than now to find it. If you think about just 200 years ago, you couldn't go on YouTube and watch a video like this. You couldn't read all the books that you have access to. You've never lived in a better time to be able to find these solutions. So it excites me all that we have access to nowadays. So another thing is, and I don't really want to offend anyone if you're not a spiritual person, that's okay. But I personally believe that I'm guided and directed. Okay. I've seen it in my life. Some people maybe think I made it up. That's okay. But to believe that I'm guided and directed is a very empowering belief. So I believe the wisdom, the solutions are out there, and I'm going to find them. I might not find them today, tomorrow. I might not figure it out today or tomorrow, but I can and I will figure it out. Solutions to all these little stressors and struggles. And that mindset brings me peace. And you could have that same peace. And if you think about it, what I'm doing there is shifting my belief. It's all about shifting the way you think, shifting your beliefs. Okay. So now let's talk about the future. I just made a video on how to deal with future fears, so I'm not going to dive into it real deep, but the future is all about what if. And then here's what we do. We say, what if? And then we create this movie, this fantasy in our mind about some disaster befalling us, because again, it goes back to, well, if this happens, I'm not going to be able to stand it. I'm not going to be able to handle it. I won't be able to deal with it, because you don't believe that you can figure it out. You don't believe you're strong enough to handle it, and you don't trust yourself, basically. So therein, that's the root, that lack of trust in yourself to be able to handle whatever comes. Okay. And let me just encourage you that we want solutions now, because why do we want solutions now? Because it takes away that uncertainty. If I could just figure it out, if I just knew what to do, if A, B, C happens, then I would be okay. But how can I know? How can I have certainty? Certainty is an illusion. Stop chasing it. You will never have it. Trust me. I tried for decades to get certainty. It's not out there. Realistically, I'm always getting tongue-tied. We know that, right? Okay. But what you need to say to yourself is not, I need a solution, I have to find it, I have to figure it out, but okay, I don't need the solution right now to an imaginary problem that hasn't even occurred. But I know that if A, B, or C happens, I can find the solution and I'll figure it out if it happens. And so if my mind comes to me and says, your daughter just learned how to drive, it's snowy out, what if she gets in an accident? Now I could instantly create a fantasy in my mind about, how we do this. I could create a fantasy in my mind of her crashing her car and she's being rushed to the hospital. Before I even get there, she passes away. And then I next create a movie about the funeral. This is the kind of stuff we do, right? And how am I going to feel? I'm going to be in absolute fear. I'll be telling myself, oh no, I couldn't stand that. I couldn't handle that. I couldn't take it. But if my mind, and remember, we can't really control the thoughts that come into our mind, only what we do with them. But if my mind says, oh, what if this happens? And I go, well, then I'll figure it out. I'll be okay because I'll figure it out, because throughout all of human history, people have suffered, they've survived, and they've figured it out. So I'm not being harsh with myself. I want to have confidence in myself that I can handle it. And if you think about it, there is no suffering that you are suffering with right now that is not common to man. Okay. If you are, I'd like to hear about it. Maybe I'm wrong. But everything I personally suffered, someone has suffered in some way, some shape, some form in the past. And sometimes it's really helpful to think about the collective world out there, the common humanity, and the fact that people have suffered what I'm suffering now, what I've suffered in the past, and also what I'm afraid of in the future. And they've survived. And I'm just tough. And you can look in the past and see all the times you survived when you didn't think you could, but you did. And we just don't have a choice but to go through things. But a lot of times we spend our time just resisting, wanting things to be different, trying to make them change, trying to control what we can't control. And it just leads to so much misery. So I want you to remember that it all begins with a thought. A scary thought coming into your head. You should be ashamed of yourself. That would be a past thought. You can't handle the situation right now. There's too much stress. You're probably going to get cancer. Weird thoughts like that. Or, what if something happens in the future? Okay. Recognize these thoughts. So the first step to overcoming these three thinking debacles is for you to have the awareness of recognizing these are just thoughts. And when they present themselves, you get two choices when they present themselves. Choice number one, just let it float by. Oh, well, that's not a useful thought. Let it float by. And take your focus and return it to the present moment. Choice number two, you can counteract it with what is actually true. Okay, Byron Katie sort of made that famous in her method of just saying, is this true? Well, I can tell you, when you're afraid of something, it always seems true, even if it's not. I like the question, is it useful? Is it useful for me to think about what might happen to my child next year? It's not useful. Okay, so bringing yourself back to the present moment, but also saying, okay, what would be a useful thought? Okay, you can also ask yourself, what would be the consequences for my life if I continue to think this way? If I continue to worry about my child getting in a car accident, if I continue to beat myself up over something that happened in the past, if I continue to believe that there's no solution to the problem that I'm living in now, you already know the answer to that question. I don't have to answer it for you. Okay. And that helps you to realize when your thinking needs to change. And that's where you need to change it. Okay. You need to start telling yourself different things. Of course, I like hypnosis for doing that. I like to shift my subconscious with hypnotic suggestion. I work on myself, I work on my clients. We shift those beliefs deep within the subconscious. It's not that you can't shift them without using hypnosis, but hypnosis is boom, fast because it gets right into the subconscious mind. So you can also, at least when you think about the future, okay, you can mitigate a lot of these future fears by visualizing the positive. So your mind presents you with something terrible. Oh, what if you end up divorced? You can just as easily play that movie of that negative consequences, you could say, you know what, nope, I'm not painting this picture for myself. I'm actually going to paint a picture of the positive. Because you know what? 90% of the stuff you've been worried about has never happened. Am I right? For most of us, that's the case, right? So all these visualizations of disaster that you've made didn't come true anyway. You might as well spend your time visualizing the best case scenario. That might not come true either, but you're going to feel a lot better in the process, right? Another thing I like to do is active meditation. I just made a video about that, and you could check that out. So, in active meditation, it's a way to just let the thought go. Okay. So, you can visualize, you can journal, um, and write a letter to yourself and say those positive things. You know what, Tiffany? Look at everything that you have gone through in the past. I know you can do this. Write a letter to yourself as if you were your best friend. Ask your friends if they believe in you. Ask your family, ask your spouse. And they will often point out to you a lot of strength that you have not even been acknowledging. Okay. So I hope this is helpful. I hope you could hear me okay today. And you'll be looking at this annoying microphone a lot more in the future. And I'm going to keep the videos coming. And I don't make them for myself. I make them for you because I care about you. I know what it's like to struggle, to suffer, and to not have peace of mind. And I think everyone deserves peace of mind and freedom.